All right. It looks like we're live. All right. My name is Courtney Skinner. I'm from Appleton, Wisconsin. I am pretty active in the corruption in Manitowoc County and the state of Wisconsin. And I have a really special guest, somebody I've spoken with before. And he's done a lot to speak up for what's going on in the Manitowoc area. He's been silenced or tried to be, but they never really got it. We're doing this from a good distance, so we know we have a little delay in our interaction. So we're going to do our best. Dave, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to talk to you.
Yeah, right on. I knew of you from, some of this might be repetitive. We've done other interviews. I don't really ever go back and look at those, but I feel like who you are in the research community and the alleged truther community is very relevant in this entire case and many others. So I really wanted to, I feel like every time you do an interview, they're a little more, I think people are a little more distant from somebody that's from the area talking to you about what you know of the area, because when I talk about the area, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and when you talk about where your bar was or, who the players are, I know exactly who you're talking about. So it's a little closer connected. So I feel like I'd like to kind of pick at you a little deeper on some of your information. And I too have heard some, of course, we all hear about who others think are informants and this and that. So I want to touch on that too. Okay.
Ready to go.
There you go. So let's just kind of start in the beginning. And will you just do a brief synopsis of when you first came forward? One of my questions, because I'm not clear on it, is you part of your story is that you and your wife, Sandra, saw Stephen on the 31st in 2005. Well, and that's kind of where it starts. Let's start with that, because this is, and we'll go back to the earlier stuff. Because this point right here, I'm sorry I can see you talking, but I want to start off immediately with what you have probably endured as people not believing you, and like some of the rumors that go around, like you're some kind of state informant, or why that would even make any sense. But to me, that statement came more from the October 31st, you seeing him at this gas station with gas cans, when really, had they taken your testimony, it probably would have been kind of a good thing for the state, because they're saying that Stephen burned the body with all this gas, and you're saying I saw him with 2 damn gas cans. But they never take your testimony?
No, I called them twice, and then I sent them a letter.
You called who?
The Manitowoc County.
And told them I saw Stephen out at this Cenex. Was it the Cenex?
It was Patsy's in Two Rivers.
Okay. And
then after they didn't come to my house, both times they said they were going to send somebody out to take a statement, and that never happened. So finally we typed up a letter and sent it to him, explaining what we saw, just that he was there filling gas cans, whatever,
And they must have a record of that. Right? Like if you chose to do it, somebody could do it. That's got to be part of the investigation.
You would think, even if I was wrong, you know what I mean? Even if I had made it up, you think they'd want to at least talk to me. You know what I mean?
But do you think that they have a record of you communicating with them? I mean, since you wrote it out, they should have that on record, right?
Yeah, if they didn't just take it and throw it in the trash. I mean, it's just a letter. I kept the copy, but I lost it years ago, way before all this MAM stuff started,
Well, I wonder if it is something that somebody couldn't find.
It'd be interesting if it came up, you know.
It should, but it just goes, it fits more into they already wanted who they wanted and it didn't matter. But the it kind of for me, I guess, is that I don't understand how anybody could think that you would be a confidential informant and come what that information would do when it was not even used in anything. They didn't even use it. So how does that, put you in that category at all? I don't understand.
I've never talked to anybody officially. It's really weird.
Right. And then he was also, yeah, that's okay. So
I'm pretty sure Kathleen Zellner sent a couple of private investigators to my house to talk to me right after my videos came out, before she took the case. They just interviewed me, and they said they were working for a lawyer in Chicago, and they implied that it was a female, and that's all I got from them. Like I said, that was before Zellner even took the case, so I wasn't even sure who she was. But they wanted to question me about it, about my videos. I was like, sure, I'll talk to you about it. I'll tell you all about it. And that's basically what I did. I just sat down and they recorded what I said.
And you
never heard from him again. Never heard from him again. So I don't know.
And that was when was that around?
That was like in 2015 or 2016 when I first released the videos. Right before MAM came out, I released my videos.
Oh, really?
To kind of make sure that people weren't saying I was like jumping on a bandwagon. I've been talking about Stephen Avery possibly being innocent since his trial. When the trial started and you started all learning everything about how fishy everything was and how it was just like the last trial, I just saw too many similarities and I found out all the details. And that's when I was really surprised that they didn't come and talk to me, and I kind of made sense of it. And people have found me in 2007, I think, talking on a forum that he might be innocent. And I saw him that night. And,
okay. See, that's a big chunk that I miss because I'm in Appleton, which is 45 miles away. And my own case was going on, reinvestigation of my brother's death in 2005. But after Calumet County completely screwed our family over and Ken Kratz, we just felt so defeated. So, of course, I don't know what's going on in your area out in Manitowoc. It's hard because a lot of people that watch Making a Murder and a lot of people that do the research, it's this is our life out here. You know what I mean? It's a crazy little world out here, and you were all living it at the time. We feel like we got to live it because we see it on Making a Murder, and we didn't see shit. We didn't. So that's really interesting, and so back even before Making a Murderer came out, you think Zellner's people came to you. So she was involved in it before the first Making a Murderer?
I think after the first Making a Murderer.
So 2015, I think that.
Yeah, it was like right after I put out my videos. It had probably been in like December of 2015.
Okay. And did you know they were making this movie?
No, the movie had come out already. And I knew they were making it. I had heard about it like years before. People were talking about it. But, when I found out it was coming out for sure, I knew what it was going to show. I mean, right. I watched the whole trial. I knew how screwed up it was. I learned a few things from Making a Murder, but most of all that I already knew. I knew because I watched the trial. But
right. I didn't really watch the trial. I can remember I moved to California for a while, but I remember the day that they arrested Stephen Avery. And I can tell you as somebody that, because of course I knew Ken Kratz was a dirty bugger and Jerry Pagel, but I sure didn't think that they were going to put out that press conference the way they did. And I fell for it hook, line, and sinker.
Me too. I believe it.
We were safe again. We were protected. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then when they came with Brendan, it was like, well, of course, it was absolute media control of our psyche. And even when we were down there with Under Sheriff Mark Ott working with Calumet County in 2005 on our case, we were, saying to him, "Oh, we know you're so busy, with this stuff going on with this other case," and seriously naive in believing that they were going to help us, but when they were doing what they were doing, and but okay. One of the things, I know this interview is not very good because I'm not trying to be a YouTube sensation. I'm trying to be real and get the real. There's a human side to this. I feel like all the researchers don't want to look at. They just want to, you have to prove with a report or a file that everything is happening this way. And I think they're missing a big chunk of the puzzle. And that is people from the area coming forward if they can. You don't live in the area, you're in Mexico, right? Can I say that?
Yeah, I'm in Mexico.
I
moved to Texas before the trial started. I watched the trial in Texas.
Right.
And now I'm in Mexico. No relation to what's going on up there. It's just the way things are working for me,
Okay, so you moving to Mexico.
I'm not down here hiding or anything,
But you're moving to Mexico. Does it have anything to do with fear of this?
No.
Okay.
I go home to Two Rivers almost every year. I mean, I know I'm in danger. I mean, it doesn't matter where I am.
Right.
These people have plenty of money and plenty of resources. If they want to reach out to where I can't hide from them. You know what I mean? There's no hiding. Mexico isn't that far away.
How much control do you have over it anyway with whatever they want to do? Yeah. It is what it is. And the problem is that people don't want to come forward because they're scared, and we're scared. I'll say it right here. I'm scared, of course. I say it in every video. I see what they're capable of. I've seen what they've done to innocent people and how they cover for each other. So the big thing that you brought out, Dave, in the beginning, and was that there is a big club that runs this area. And you're speaking of Manitowoc because that's where you're freaking from. So in your experience, and Dave has a lot of videos on that. How many do you have on that, Dave?
I don't even know. A lot.
Yeah. Lots of them. And I like my perspective on your perspective of the club, because I found you probably in 2018. I didn't feel, I watched Making a Murderer, and then I was too afraid to come out and talk about the corruption I knew of in Calumet County. And it was, kind of a shock. I found whatever social media platform I felt comfortable on. And of course I found your videos, but in the meantime and years before, my sisters and I spent a lot of time in like this, just digging deep into the Freemasonry and stuff in Calumet, Manitowoc, in that area. And really a lot of the architecture out there is just so Freemasonic. It's very interesting. But so when I first heard your videos, I had that sense of something is really fucking weird around here. And to this day, I feel as though with a lot of the community out there, people are so afraid of what's going to happen to their families and their businesses that they can't come forward, and the people running it all are never going to allow that area to thrive, because I personally believe that the people running it all want to keep it small so there isn't that much attention, because they're running a lot more than what people think. Anyway, way off track there, but I remember talking to you on the phone then about the club, and you were saying it's just a little club. I don't know. It's a little club. It's got, you named a few people in it, which I hope we get to. And I was saying it's bigger than that. It's bigger than that. Do you remember? that you were
Yeah,
thinking?
yeah, I know that
Scared?
it's bigger, but you know, these local, well, me thinking it's small is like to the state level, you
Right,
know, but the more and more you learn, you,
right. And I did, and,
you don't even want to believe it, but
yeah, and
I've seen it, you know what I mean?
I'm sorry, go on.
I've seen it with my own eyes. I've had it, dragged in front of me. So it isn't like it's not real. You know what I mean? I know that these people are associated in these clubs, and there's club within the club. Some people
Mhm.
say it's the jesters,
Right, right.
but they're all contributing to they think that they're doing good. Everybody always wants to think they're doing good. Hitler thought he was doing good. You know what I
Well,
mean? So, you know,
I think they, I don't think they think they're doing good. I think they know that if they don't do it, bad things are going to happen. Right. And then, and for you too, you're talking about Manitowoc, Wisconsin. It isn't like you're in this metropolis talking about this huge mafia club ruling everything. You're talking about your situation in your kind of small town. And you're not going to see much of it other than owning a bar and the information you got that they brought forward to you while you were owning the bar and what happened to Marianne. And so, like you were saying, that is a little club amongst the club, like, but still running the whole goddamn town. And it also branches off into the Eagles Club, into the Lions Club, into the,
yeah, it's all this. It's almost exactly the same thing, and
right,
almost the exactly same people.
they're run by the same format. They're just a little bit shadier. And it's with these clubs, it's all about the secret. So if you and I, just like this alleged truther community is, you know what I mean? I keep saying they have the biggest club I've ever seen, but it's all about the secrets. You and I can start a club right now. What's the club rule going to be? We keep each other's secret, right?
Yeah, I
And,
guess.
and, and how do you get people to keep the secrets? You bribe them like they were trying to do to you, right?
Or threaten.
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 And for you too, and what was obviously going on. I mean, they weren't looking at you going, "Hey, there's this guy named Dave Begotka that races motorcycles and owns a bar. We need him in our club." It was because you owned a bar that if you didn't join into whatever racketeering, right, they were going to keep you protected, keep you safe. If you didn't join the club, shit wasn't going to go so well for you, which is exactly what happened.
Well, they said bad things will happen.
Bad things will happen.
Bad things will happen.
Mm-hmm. And then they did.
Yeah.
So,
and remember, before I owned the bar, I was already tried. I was already approached when I was right after I saw the thing on the beach with Penny Bernstein.
mm-hmm.
Right after that, I was approached and asked to join this sex club.
Okay, now you're going to say who approached you?
Yeah, Bob Ziegebauer.
Okay, people. I wish I had a picture of that fucker to flash across the screen right now because, people don't even understand who that guy is.
Well, he had a stroke here recently, a few years ago, so I'm sure he forgot all this. You know what I mean? He probably got a doctor that'll tell you that, he doesn't.
No, he's hiding in plain sight,
Yeah.
He's he's still today the Manitowoc County executive,
Yeah, he ran unopposed. I don't know what people think. I don't know why, I don't know. I'm glad I'm not there.
Explain that interaction with him back then. You and Bob Ziegelbauer here.
Well, after I tried to find Penny Bernstein on the beach and that whole long story, I don't know if you want to talk about that. I was working at a gas station in Two Rivers as like a pump jockey mechanic kind of guy. And my boss told me that Bob Z here, he wants to talk to you. And I'm like, why would he want to talk to me? I I had no idea,
And did you know who Bob Ziegelbauer was then? Or?
just a little bit. I
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
knew. I kind of knew about this club. Kids talk about it. People talk about it. I kind of
Did
knew
he
it was a
own
big
the
shot.
record store?
Yes.
Okay, so you didn't know him through that.
Yeah, and he did other things. I mean, they were in on that.
Yep. Yep.
That North Shore liquor.
Yep.
I mean, all sorts
Dad
of.
owned that. Yep.
When I worked at the Back 40, and that was owned by Ziegelbauer's, and I worked for Gunther Blinkowski, and he was friends with Ziegelbauer. So I kind of knew the whole show already. I kind of knew, but he comes in to the gas station and whips out these Polaroids, and he's talking about, we got this club, we want you to join in. He explained how racketeering works to me. You know what I mean? You kick up, and exactly.
Wait, Bob Ziegelbauer,
favors, yeah.
the county executive, right now in Manitowoc County.
This is in 1985.
And he's been in some type of office on that board ever since.
Well, he was the state representative too.
Yep.
Actually.
You can look him up on Wikipedia. Yeah.
But anyways, these pictures are a bunch of Polaroids back in the day. That's, the way you got nudie pictures, but they were a bunch of Polaroids of people looked like a hotel room having like a group sex situation, like a sex party. And he showed me in these pictures, I recognized some of these people, and he told me that they had these parties, and they were mostly guys. They were, it was all men in these pictures, and he could tell I was kind of shook. He said, well, don't worry, Dave, we get girls sometimes too, whatever that means, and then I was totally freaked out. I was like, well, we'll let you know. I boogied. I didn't want to be near that guy for another second.
Well, and I think it's interesting because I don't think to this day Ziegelbauer is an out homosexual. It isn't like I've heard that he's walking around proud and gay. So one thing I've always wanted to ask you is, what was the demeanor of the people in the pictures? Were they smiling at the camera? The picture was taken? It
was goofy, drunk pictures, Goofy, drunk, naked pictures, kind of,
Okay. And then it was after that your bar. Well, there was another instance after that where didn't your friends kind of set you up to meet with one of the club leaders?
That was in the mid-90s.
Mm-hmm.
And it all got kind of explained to me again. I turned them down again.
And now, who was the guy they wanted you to talk to that day?
That time, there was a whole line of them. That was... I don't think I can say this guy's name because he's never really held public office. And if I say his name now, I mean, I could get sued or whatever. I want to just stay away from
Don't do it,
making myself too much trouble. But, a local businessman, local business people, and local law enforcement, let's just say,
Okay, wasn't there some instance with Tom Kusurik? Or something when you were in high school or something like that, or
no,
something.
This was the same people.
Okay.
The main reason I didn't join the club in the mid '90s at the time was because I already had so much trouble with them at the bar. They harassed, in my mind at that time, they had harassed Marianne, and I knew that they had this party in my bar. So I was like, I didn't have any respect for him, and plus I knew this guy's kid, and his kid had harassed me in high school, and it was just, kid stuff, but I still didn't have any respect for him because he had talked some shit about my mother. He had said he knew my mother when she was young and how assholes talk about women. And I didn't appreciate it when I was 16 years old, hearing it, having a single mother, and this guy's talking shit about my mom in high school,
Mm-hmm.
So I just had no respect for him, any of them. It's bullshit how they it's what made them. The only reason they have what they have, and they know it, is because they do this stuff.
Yeah.
If they had to compete in a fair setting, it would be a different show, let me tell you, I mean, the right people would get the jobs.
Well, and Dave, that attitude that you have is what so many out here have, and guys that I've spoken to, just like you, that are just like, I had a guy that I was talking to about a year ago, and then we didn't really need to talk anymore. And I recently contacted him, and he's just like, he can't even believe it. It's worse. He says, if you uncover what's really going on out here, people won't even believe it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they kind of, I think, in the 40s and 50s, there was such a boom time. They had military industrial complex money going through Manitowoc. They were building submarines. I mean, cranes. I mean, it was a huge, thousands and thousands of people working,
Yeah.
And there was a lot to skim back then. And now things are pretty tight. So I'm sure drugs and child prostitution or trafficking or whatever you can imagine is something that they'll do because they're pigs and they want money and they're pigs.
Right. I shouldn't laugh, but I like hearing you say it. Well, and you don't think there isn't maybe a submarine sitting around out there? And the thing about Bob Ziegelbauer too is he's the CEO of Manitowoc Ice, Manitowoc Ice does the ice machines for bars, restaurants, everything, multi-million dollar.
Aren't they out of business now though?
I don't know. What do you mean?
I think they shut down a couple of years ago.
No way. You can Google them. No, I'm serious. It's still.
Now, they moved out of Manitowoc. I know that for sure. Everybody got.
They have a whole arena out there, Manitowoc Ice.
Not anymore.
Really?
No.
Okay, I'll have to look into that. One of my questions.
But it doesn't mean that it's still not a business and they're not building them somewhere else. I don't know that.
Right. Just not in Manitowoc.
Yeah.
We'll get back to Ziegelbauer, I'm sure. One of the questions I've been wanting to ask you about Marianne Denny is, I know she was afraid of the club, and the club was coming in saying you needed to join it.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I learned from a really great person out there that gave me some good information is that back in the day, and maybe you know about this, bartenders kind of bounced around. Like it was pretty common for a bartender to work for you and then work for somebody down the road and kind of fill in for each other, right?
They all had their little crowd, people that liked them, their buddies. They would all bring their buddies. And
exactly. So and I know Marianne was running your bar, and I know she had her own bar, I think you said at one time, or managed it.
Yeah, she managed Pat and Mike's, I think was the name of it, and it was around the corner, and the building got condemned. And then she came to me with a saying that she'd like to manage my bar,
Okay.
And I was all for it because I was so sick of it.
Did she know about the club before coming to your bar? Had she experienced it at other bars?
Yeah, she owed him money.
Okay, so that's a good, because here's what I do know of it being pretty common for back then for police or law enforcement or whoever the fuck is protecting your bar to kind of force you to shut down your bar for private parties. And at these private parties, it was some sex, drugs, and rock and roll, whatever. Cops, right? And they weren't really ever, even when they wanted to stop doing the parties, they weren't really allowed to stop doing the parties. They didn't really have a choice. So Marianne had already, she fell into it, right? I mean, who isn't going to join this club? You're a very rare person that didn't say, fuck it, I better join the club. But so she was already fell into it. And that is exactly what they're going to do. And she isn't going to go work for you if you're not in the damn club. That's probably exactly what happened.
Yeah, they probably didn't like that she was working for me. They'd
want her working for another club member.
Yeah, she had, running a bar, she had borrowed money, to keep it open. And she was in hock to them like $30,000. And she wanted to buy my bar for me on a land contract, but she owed the club this $30,000. And I told her, she was managing my bar, I said, well, just concentrate on paying off that money. And then after you get that money paid off, then we'll work on, you wanting to buy my bar,
Right.
But that wasn't good enough for them. They wanted me to join, and me, because we weren't paying out of that bar because I wasn't in the club, and it looks bad for all the other bars because they know I'm not in the club, and they're like, well, why do I got to be in the club if Dave isn't in the club, so they can't, I'm a bad situation, I'm showing these other guys that maybe they don't have to be in the club.
Right.
And that's why they had to squash me like they did.
Yeah. They had to prove that,
I didn't really believe at that time that it was as bad. Like I said to Marianne the last time I talked to her, I said, Marianne, well, when I get back from deer hunting, I said, we'll go to the police. And she's like, Dave, they are the police, And I was like, I knew that, but I thought maybe there was some other police. I knew that there was, maybe another venue, but I was being naive. You know what I mean? At that point in time, especially, I had no chance, and I'm lucky I didn't end up dead or in prison like Avery.
Well, I always think it's funny they didn't frame you for any of this.
I think they tried. They were
on the beach that day with Penny. It could have, because
I think they maybe had planned on framing me with Marianne's murder, and luckily I was far enough away and had a solid alibi. There was no way that they'd have been able to do it. And I think I just got lucky. And then they had to say, oh, she wasn't murdered. She had a heart attack and had blood all over her and whatever.
Right. And she's disposable like anybody is. And you're more valuable to them out of jail joining their club, So, yeah.
I don't know. And after that, I had to declare bankruptcy. I just laid really low. I worked out of the area. Any jobs I got, I mostly worked like in Milwaukee or Beloit or something. I just tried to stay away from those people as much as I could.
Right.
Hope they went away.
So, one of the things about the club that I want to, that makes the most sense of all of it, and it is so relevant to absolutely everything going on, is the vow of secrecy. And I believe that that's exactly what's going on in the Avery case as well. I believe it's exactly what keeps the truth of the Ricky Hochstetler case from coming forward. And with your story with Marianne and what happened to you, it just solidifies that for me, that if they come forward, the rule of the Freemasons is you're murdered for the secret. You keep the secret or you die.
Yeah. Shunned.
And I feel like in the Avery case, that I believe that the police, whether Barb, Scott, Chuck, Earl, I don't give a shit who they want to throw onto the heap. It was planned by the club of the police or whoever. And what the club is you might not say, hey, I want to join your club. Can I be a member of your club? They need to invite you into the club, but they make you need favors. If you say, no, I don't want to be in it, like it would have been with you. Would to Marianne dying was just one thing that happened. It could have been a lot of things and it did. A lot of things brought you down of remaining a bar owner out there. I don't want to say it's this. Well, I have to say it's law enforcement out there. I mean, I don't know. I feel like there was a rift between Manitowoc Police Department and the Sheriff Department in 1985 during the Penny Bernstein thing. I feel like Bergner did try to, clear Stephen of that and did his best to point to Gregory Allen. It was Kusurik all the way. but he's the sheriff. He's still running the county. He's over the police, right? He's over.
Yeah, well, if you're going to have a successful club like this, having law enforcement on your side is crucial. You know? So, I don't think that all the cops are in on this, but I think most of them know about it.
Right.
And there's a lot of them that, that are just like, wish it wasn't so, and they look the other way. They do what they have to do, but they don't really care for it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that burns my ass to this day is that I've spoken to a couple retired Manitowoc County deputies, and even at this age, they're not going to speak up. They still receive a pension. They know how big it is, and they've even said to me, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this? You're just going to get hurt." So what do you? But I just want to say to them, fuck, can you show a little courage? Can you do the right thing? I mean, I think they fear for their lives, of course. And
they don't think that there's hope. If you don't think there's hope, if you don't, why do it,
Well, and especially when you try to put information out and so many people try to shut it down or say that you're crazy or, one of the things I'm trying to do is get more locals to come forward. And I need to, try to give them a safe place to do it. Maybe by putting myself out there and keeping their names confidential. We got to try to clean it up somehow. It's not your job in Mexico, but you add a lot to it, and it's never going to stop unless people wake up.
Yeah. I don't know. I do what I can do, I've said what I can. There's no secrets anymore. I pretty much told everybody what has gone on up there in my experience. I mean,
I want to ask you a little bit more about the pictures because that's kind of relevant to some pictures that I have in my possession. But excuse me. What was I going to ask you about the pictures? Damn it. What was the reason for them showing you the pictures? Was that to bribe somebody else? How would them showing you those pictures get you to want to join the club? I mean, if you're a straight man, you're going to go, what the fuck?
Yeah, I don't know. It was really weird,
And then for you too to be asked to join the club, aren't you going to go, well, why the fuck would I join a club when I know they're going to walk around with naked pictures of me next to someone else's bar? Like
that's one of the things that came to my mind right away. You know what I mean?
Well, of course. I could see if they were, of pedophilia or whatever, and it's perfectly all right if good old Bob Ziegelbauer wants to display sexuality. Go with your bad self, Bob. But it's just
one of the pictures, he waved it kind of in front of me. He says, "Hey, this guy?" And I did. It was I don't remember his name. I wish I did. He was one of the guys who ended up coming into my bar and threatening me to join the club. So I know these people in these pictures are in that club. I mean, they're all the same people, And he was also a junior Ramblers football coach. In Two Rivers, they have the junior Ramblers 6th, 7th, and 8th grade football. And he was one of my coaches when I was in that.
I know, but you can't remember his name. I've tried to look him up. I know.
It could have been a Kasurik. It really could have been. I'm serious, but I don't know. I don't. If I could see the pictures, I could recognize them. But I haven't. You'd have to find them pictures, and they'd have to. I don't know where you'd even find pictures from in the 70s of the junior Ramblers football teams.
Hey, I can if I got a name. And I can run a bunch of them by you. I have looked. I've looked. You said there were teachers in there, right? And we went, Kim Ducat went to your high school, and we sat and looked through her yearbook, and she's like, shit. Yeah. Really cool, though, to see that, old yearbook.
It was really, really weird, that he showed me a picture of that teacher, too, and that's right, that I mean, I had just graduated high school, and it was really creepy.
You look like you're having a flashback. Okay, so I personally believe that Tom Kusurik is the major, the kind of the kingpin of the club, the corruption, absolutely running it. And I know enough to know that the sheriff pretty much runs the show out there. And, when you're working with a fucking DA that's dirty too, that just, gives them complete control. This is relevant to locals coming forward. You had years ago had some interactions with Stephen Grimm, and I'll just do a little. Stephen Grimm comes up in the George Zipper blog spot, and your story on him. I have a funny perspective on when you told me the story about Stephen Grimm. And I'll just start it by saying you were like, yeah, the guy was a real nut. He kept thinking they were going to kill him. And they killed him.
You were scared shitless.
And I went out there. Anna took me out to the story we hear is that Stephen Grimm jumped off a bridge, right? And I took pictures of it. I haven't released them because I don't know how relevant they are. But
I thought he killed himself in a garage with a car. Asphyxiation.
Grimm?
Yes. I think
okay, so. I'm thinking of the
he's the same guy that went up to the high school and wanted to climb the tower and talk to the guys.
Right, but I thought he jumped off the overpass.
I don't think so. I don't think that was him. I'm pretty sure he died in a asphyxiation.
I gotta look that up. I thought he jumped off the overpass and it was the traffic literally stopped. He just stopped, jumped over, and I think people think, yeah, he jumped into water. He jumped from a fucking, it wasn't even that high. The guy wanted to fucking die. I would think that it was better for him to die than to face whatever was coming. And yeah, the story about him going to Lincoln High School and thinking he was a knight in a castle.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And saying he was on drugs. And I personally think he was looking for Biff Hansen, who was working there. And maybe he was on drugs, but he also knows a lot of shit. So this man, Stephen Grimm, got a hold of you and tell him what you got.
Well, he kept after my videos came out, like a week after, this guy started calling me like once or twice a week and just talking about like the Hochstedler thing and all this stuff in Manitowoc. He claimed that he used to come in my bar and he knew me, but I couldn't remember who he was at the time that, all the people that came in my bar.
Have you seen pictures of him?
Yeah, I know. Now that I've seen pictures of him, I remember him. Right. But at that time,
he's pretty unique. Yeah.
Yeah. And, he said that he was worried about them shooting him because he had a cemetery across the street from his house, and he was worried about people sniping him from the cemetery. And he knew all about the Ricky Hochstedler thing, and he said it was a cover-up. And he said that he dated Kusurik's daughter, and somehow through her he found out that they took the truck that supposedly ran over Ricky to Petruski's and worked on it and fixed it. And I mean, he seemed really, I don't know, kind of crazy, you know what I mean? So I didn't take a lot of what he said 100%. But now it sounds like to me, as everything has become more, I don't know how to even say it, to the light, that he might have been more factual than not, And when I've talked to other people who knew him now, and they agree that he didn't kill himself, that they think they killed him because he was making all this trouble. And nobody knows for sure what really happened at the high school that day. It sounds like somebody could have even drugged him. He used to go to the bars. He'd go out to the bars. How hard is it to drop something into somebody's drink and drug them up and then push them into, make them do something? I don't know if that's what happened. but you can't put it past them because it's the kind of things they do. Look at the things they do with that woman who talked to you, with the narc or whatever. I'm sorry, Anna. Yeah, I mean, sending them in places and trying to set up all these people. All that shit is so disgusting. I mean, it's like unbelievable constitutional violations, secret police and Nazi shit. You know what I mean?
And to put her in such fear for having a little bit of weed or whatever.
Yeah, and body cavity searches and all the,
a fucking, and they're completely disposable, and don't tell me if something would have happened to Anna in one of these, that they would have taken any accountability.
No.
And there's a part of me that wonders if Teresa Halbach, if she is even dead, wasn't an informant. Because I know they try to get anybody in their jails to become an informant.
Yeah.
So
she's not the first one I've heard them kind of stories from.
Anna?
Yeah. I know how they operate. It's horrible,
I did a lot of looking into Calumet County, and that's where Mark Wiegert's from. Yeah. And I would assume it's pretty much the same over in Manitowoc with good old Dave Remacher and those guys, that when you go to their jail, they ask you to be an informant. When you don't, you pay the price, Yeah. So, and I feel like that's a lot of what happened with Chuck, Earl, Scott during the Avery stuff. Their records seem to be oddly clean. So clean that Chuck never showed any fear in his interrogation, if you want to call it that, in the back of the car. He didn't show any fear that this might be put on me. Not at all. And he's already raped how many women? He's already strangled his wife. Charges, kind of gone. They dropped him in 2003. Earl too.
Yeah, that's weird. That you're right. That it's a lot of weird shit. A lot of shit appeared.
Yeah, and Scott had something dropped on his record where he shot a fucking rifle or a firearm in the city, and it's not even to be seen now. It was like a felony. All gone. So I do believe that I don't believe now there's a new club and it consists of, Scott, Bobby, I think even Ryan Hilgis and Scott Blodorn and Mike Halbach were being initiated in a club on making a murder. I do. There's things that you need to do. There's favors you need to do. And I'm not saying they're in the same club as Barb Scott and the people that hold it off for the cops, but not a lot of people need to know what other people are doing.
There's different, it's like the mafia. If they all associate. They all know each other. They work together. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But they're different little factions. It's really dangerous, actually.
It is dangerous, and it gives me great joy to know that they all worry that one of them is going to be the one to take them out. At least we know that they walk around not trusting anyone and constantly in fear that the truth will come out. Great life they get to live. For what?
Yeah, I don't, the door of truth, you know what I mean? If all this, let's just say all of what I say is true, and this that actually came out, that all this shit is going on, I mean, that would just be like domino effect. There'd be a lot more people coming forward, a lot more people admitting what's going on, and it would be big. It really would be, because.
Well, I think that's the point, though. We see it being exposed all over America and the world, and for people to have not, looked at it in this case too, that why isn't this? What do you mean there's people running our politics, running our law enforcement, but not in Manitowoc County? It's actually totally clear.
Well, look at the Jeffrey Epstein thing. I mean, this ties right into that.
Mm-hmm.
with all this sex shit club, illicit crap, I mean,
Yeah.
if you believe that is real, and they didn't do anything about it. Then look at all the people that didn't get their names brought into it, all the cover-ups, all the big executive people that Epstein had, none of them got exposed.
Right. And
what happened to Clinton? Clinton was on that plane, nothing.
Mm-hmm. Because it's insanity. But theirs is based too on what they were using to bribe these people. You know what I mean? Like whether he had cameras or even their name being on a list. And in my research, I've realized that these Trax Tavern pictures from the Laurencia Van Bennett case back in the 80s, I've realized that they are the Manitowoc County, the State Crime Lab, the police department in Manitowoc. And that's a big, long story that I can go into another time. But for me, of course, it's very relevant because this is Tom Kusurik, this is Ken Kratz, this is Sherry Culhane, this is Deb Kakash, this is Berdner, Couchet, the Hermans. It's them. So I get the pictures that were released in this Ben Bennett case were actually these Manitowoc and state people. And my theory is that everybody knew from 1980 when the Ben Bennett case came out, because she came forward with this album of cops that were dancing at these parties, and one of the guys in it was ended up being her husband, Alfred Schultz. And he is identified in the pictures, but it's the people in the background of Alfred Schultz that I can identify. So it's the same series of pictures. It's all these people. I have brought these pictures to Lai and Larry Ledvina at Manitowoc. Kim Ducat and I brought them in last year already. And I also dropped off a set of the pictures because Judy Dvorak sent them. I dropped them off in her newspaper box with my phone number and a message asking her why she's in the pictures. I'd like to talk to her. The pictures that you described that were shown to you sound a little bit about like the pictures that they are saying are the Trax Tavern. And I believe those pictures are being used to bribe everyone in the pictures.
Well, there's probably a lot more.
Of course there
is. So,
And that's just eight pictures of the 150 they're supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, think about what a perfect place Maribel Caves is if you have access to it. I know that those cops will go down there and close the park.
Right.
They park a cop car in the front where you go in the main way, and then there's a back way. And they would park a cop car down there. Who's going to go in there if the cops are there, And then they'd have big parties, they'd all the people you can park down there. Nobody even knows nothing's even going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And several people have said that absolutely totally common. Is more common to see a cop parked there than not, right? Mm-hmm. And
they use it for all sorts of stuff.
What's that?
They use that area for all sorts of stuff.
Right. And then they can stop people before even getting into the park. Yep. I believe that what we found out about Fox Hills, I've just been doing a lot of research into Fox Hills. I had no idea it was this gigantic place. In my head, I always thought it was just a little resort. It's huge. And then I talked to Anna, who worked there, and she worked with Chuck Avery's daughter, Chuck Avery's son. Her sister worked there. It was pretty much a lot of people in the area worked at Fox Hills because it was a big, huge place. And she said, we go over and meet someone, and Anna says, hey, you remember the person says, hey, you remember those parties that the Chicago cops would have at Fox Hills? And I go, what the fuck? And I go, well, that must have been a good weekend. She goes, oh, they lasted all week.
Wow.
Which would make sense why Chuck Avery's in the background. I mean, I'm not saying Chuck Avery threw a party. But the importance of these pictures is that they were very, very important back then. The media, who I talked to the guy, and I believe he's corrupt, the guy that published them in the 80s, he published these 8 pictures of the Manitowoc and Calumet and Culhane and the others I have on them. They weren't Milwaukee cops that they published in the Milwaukee paper. And I even said to the guy, Tim Meyer, I said, well, it sounds to me like you knew you were putting how could anybody identify the Milwaukee cops when they're not Milwaukee cops, right? It worked out pretty well. But still, these Manitowoc and Calumet cops are in these very, very important Trex Tavern. They're saying Trex Tavern, but I believe it happened at Maribel. Maybe a private party. Alfred Schultz is in them. I can track Christine Schultz lived in Appleton, Wisconsin. My city. So I'm not that far. I go to Manitowoc all the time. I don't know how to get Alfred Schultz here, but I can tell you the woman standing behind Alfred Schultz is from Manitowoc County. So all these years, these pictures have been out there, and people are being followed over these Trex Tavern pictures because there was a couple sets of them. They believe Christine Schultz may have been murdered over that set of pictures because it's Alfred Schultz's ex-wife. Anyway, even in 1992, I found a dateline where these pictures are brought up, the same exact pictures where I'm identifying all these Manitowoc state local officials. And I'm saying that at no time since those pictures ever came out was it safe for anyone to ever reveal who was in the pictures. Because Laurentia Bembenek's lawyer, Mary Warrer, said there were prominent judges, DAs, everything. And I'm saying, yes, there were. And she knows about these pictures. She believes it's probably them too. It's kind of up to me to prove it more. She thinks we need to get Stephen to acknowledge the pictures. And we did ask him. And he said, I know about them Maribel pictures. Chuck ain't in them. So kind of hard to, I don't think he understands the relevance of this set of pictures, but let's just say, whether you want to believe it or not, let's hypothetically say I have absolutely 100% proven it's Tom Kusurik, it's Kenny Peterson, it's Couché Bergner, Sherry Culhane, Deb Kakash in these pictures. Does that change anything of all of this fucking shit going on? That
Bushman
everyone
too, right?
are in the pictures, and they've all framed Stephen Avery. And that's what's been going on. And when we went back into Larry Ledvina and talked about the pictures again, he said, fucking idiot, sit in his kick back in his chair. His answer was, how do we know you didn't Photoshop those pictures?
Well, the same pictures are on that documentary you talk about. You know what I mean?
Well, right.
I watched that yesterday, by the way. You mentioned it, and I watched it. So
what's that?
Refresh my memory. The thing you talked about with the Trex Tavern pictures in '92.
Yeah.
I watched that special, and
Well, the funny thing about that is that I don't really, when I look for stuff on Bembenek, I don't go with anything mainstream because I don't really like mainstream media. So I kept overlooking that silly video, and holy shit, that's the only place on earth that those pictures are at. On that and on the Lori Bembenek blog spot. So it's really interesting to me too, who sent this series of pictures in for Laurentia Bembenek's private investigator to download onto the blog spot and say, can anybody identify the people in these pictures? And Tim Meyer, the guy I'm calling out as corrupt as the publisher, he has some comments under there. And like the first time I talked to him, he seemed all right. And the second time he sounded just like Larry Ledvina. Oh, those pictures don't really matter anyway. Nobody got in trouble for those pictures. I'm like, what are you talking about? Alfred Schultz lost his job over those pictures, and every cop in those pictures was going to lose their job. So, like I said, I know there's always something about pictures, you know?
Yeah.
And I think with Teresa Hallbuck too. But I am trying to get locals to come forward. I just got a woman that was actually raped by Chuck Avery, who pointed right to Chuck Avery in the picture on the side and said, "That is Chuck Avery." So having Chuck in those pictures is like this, what the fuck is going on? But I've always thought Chuck was part of framing Stephen because he controlled that yard and, you know, nothing went on without him. But now my big question is, if Chuck was in the pictures, he knew goddamn well he was in the pictures. Everybody in Wisconsin knew about that Ben Bennett case in the 80s and especially when she escaped in 90. So Chuck's known all this time. He is in the pictures that would expose all of these officials in the pictures, which might not be a club I can give a name to, but enough of the people in that circle needed to keep it quiet. And like I asked, why wouldn't Chuck have used these pictures to blackmail the county? You know?
Yeah.
Like if you were in those pictures, Dave, just hypothetically, if you had been in those pictures that were so important in the Ben Bennett case, and now they're resurfacing and some crazy lady saying you're in those pictures, you really, if you come forward and say, hey, that was me, then they're going to say, well, who's this, and this, right? Because you know who that, and that is. You know who the guy masturbating is up on that table, right? And he's law enforcement. So you still can't come out with them. And I think that what we know about Stephen robbing that bar back then, they said he took certain things, and I wonder if he didn't take a set of the pictures. And I also question whether we know of all the places he robbed. Maybe they never busted him with the pictures, and I really don't believe he'd know the relevance of the pictures. You know, it's not like they're going to go, hey, Steve, you have these pictures. You know, you remember them? They're going to be like, I don't know. So I feel like different clubs are forming all the time.
I don't know.
Different secrets. What are you thinking about? You look deep in thought there, Dave.
No.
Okay, we talked about Grimm. Remember, do you think that they had ever asked Marianne to close down your bar for a party?
I don't know. I don't think so. She didn't. You know, you got to be in on the inside for that. You know, they don't do that unless you're in the club.
Do you think they killed her before they had the party at your bar, or
that was when they were celebrating her life with all my stuff. You know, it was like, you know, her funeral party, I guess you would call it. And Ziegelbauer was down there giving away my shit behind the bar, giving away my shit. You know what I mean? I didn't find out about that until years later. Huh?
Are you kidding me? It was Ziegelbauer again?
Yeah, he was one of them. It was like a couple hundred people there, and they were having a free bar party because Marianne died, and I was gone. And by the time I got back, I was broke. You know what I mean? All my everything was gone, just about. You know, even some pictures off the walls.
Have you ever spoken to her family?
At the time, a little, and she had a son who was, I don't know, very irresponsible at the time. You know,
Mm-hmm.
He didn't really have a lot to do with anything other than just going along with it. You know what I mean?
Well, she was still in her 40s when she died, wasn't she?
She was 42.
Jesus. One thing I wanted to ask you too is you had said once that, or you did some videos that, or one that I remember at least of you flat out saying this video is for the FBI. I need you to contact with me with some information.
No,
Remember?
I didn't make any videos like that.
You didn't?
No.
No?
No, but I've sent my videos to the FBI, and they wrote back to me once at the very beginning and asked for a phone number in case they wanted to talk to me anymore, and that was it. That
Okay.
was the last thing, you know.
And you and I have talked a little bit about what your thoughts are on DOJ and DCI.
Sounds like the club goes all the way through those guys, you know, and women.
Yeah, it's just I think if you're trusted into one club and you take that oath, you're trusted into others, or you're just, it's about favors and secrecy. That's about it. I always felt that way when I talked to Mike Glazer about my brother's case, that even he just couldn't talk. He couldn't. Like, there was no way that he was going to be able to give me what I needed. You said that you still have friends out there that are worried, or that people out there that still are worried about talking about the club or what.
Oh, sure. Yeah, nobody wants to go there. You know.
So why am I?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't really, I guess I feel like I'm holding back on a lot of stuff that needs to come out because people aren't ready to hear it. And I know I talked to a researcher when I was working with her over a year ago, and she absolutely knew what this was, that it was leading to much more corruption, way bigger things, but that the general population and the general community wasn't going to be able to wrap their head around it.
Yeah, that's why I went right to the federal level. I thought there was maybe some hope at the federal level. I had no interest in talking to the state of anything of Wisconsin. Right. I knew there was no hope there. I had an accountant in the 90s who explained, he was a big shot accountant. I mean, like the most letters after his name you can get, and he was involved in Madison, and he told me that it is a total disaster. It's a disgrace. The whole state, the whole Madison, he said, is just corrupt to the core. He said there's no law and order. It's just run, horribly, and because I asked him, I said, how can this even be possible? And then so he told me,
Yeah.
He's dead now.
In my experience with meeting with DCI, DOJ, is they're as corrupt as the others. They're only there to protect other cops. Like, they're never, and I guess I know that, but I also, it's kind of like what you're expected to do. If you find information, you can't give it to Manitowoc County. Well, you're going to go to the DOJ, right? I know that we can't trust them, but it's still kind of interesting to get it to them and see what they do with it. And in the two experiences I had with their special agents, they're idiots. They're Uyghur working for the state. They come off a little more confident, but they're absolutely no different. They're same line, the way they treat you and the way they make you feel like
they're dangerous.
Yeah.
They're dangerous.
Well, they're dangerous, but it's part of uncovering it all. I don't know. It's just where it leads to. And if I got to have a couple opportunities to meet with them and see for myself, I do think it's dangerous. I don't say this, and I'll say it right now because everybody thinks I'm fucking crazy too, but I absolutely believe they were tapping my phone and Kim Ducat's, which is why I no longer have a phone. But it was after I met with Jeff Wish at DCI in 2019 that our phones just started going crazy. And when I at the time I was talking to some, other people, of course, researching the case, and they knew it too, because it would cut out, we could hear sounds, it was doing all this shit. And technically all you have to do to get permission to even do something like that is you have to be a threat to the state. And I'm pretty sure that I pose a threat to the state because I'm saying the fucking state is corrupt. And they fucking are. And I feel like I'm able to make that statement because of the proof that I hold on my brother's case. Don't you think it's a little weird that I can be out here? You know how much I've said about these officials. And nobody's told me to stop. Nobody's contacted me, said you need to, quit talking your shit about Calumet County. Never.
But you ever try and talk to like WBAY or Fox News or anybody in Green Bay? They'll give you the stone cold shoulder, man. They won't talk to you for nothing.
Well,
Fox News, CNN, none of them. It's really weird. It's like two different worlds.
Well, because they back in the day, like when my brother's case, when I was looking into that, back in the day, the only way that the media got the news was from the fucking sheriff, the person on the radio. And even in my brother's case, when my parents got a hold of the newspaper, the editor of the paper said, I know what side my bread is buttered on. And then when they questioned the coroner told the editor of the paper, you question me again and you'll never get a story again. So that's how it works. And when I got a hold of the Post-Crescent, I know the frickin' editor over there. She's the one who said, get a hold of John Farrick. He's a bulldog. And she flat out said, if you do something to make news, we might cover it. They got me in touch with their crime reporter, and he was really kind of like, oh, I'll get a hold of you next week. And I was just like, fuck that. I'm not going to beg them. They're not going to be able to uncover corruption. They're not.
They won't touch it. They won't touch it.
Right.
Because that's all controlled. It really is. It's scary when you really realize how much control they have over everything,
It's scary because I believe in Making a Murderer. The whole show with the Avery bill, all of it was all theatrics.
Yeah. Look at after Making a Murderer came out, I mean, that was a major hit to their show. You know what I mean? Of course they're going to be in damage control. Of course they're going to be looking at people like me and you, just wondering how they can get rid of the problem. But with the the internet, and we've got YouTube and stuff, I know at least 1 million people have watched the videos that I've made, and I've gone on other people's vlogs,
right?
So it's a little harder now, but they still they killed Epstein. If they really want to get rid of somebody, there's no hope.
And we know that, and that's the goddamn truth. And I sure as hell don't expect this research community to do any good research to figure out who it was.
I don't know. There's a lot of disinformation, in my opinion. There are people working that say they're truthers and they're not.
I agree.
There's a lot of shady shit going on, trying to damage control and John Farrick, he's not even on the close to the truth. You know what I mean? That guy.
I got to talk to him when I came out, when Making a Murderer came out. Must have been I don't know. Anyway, I talked to the little fucker on the phone for a few hours, and he, how he is, yeah, in the conversation. And then because the pathologist in my brother's case actually comes up in his book with Mike Bushman. They pulled over something on someone, those good guys. But anyway, he told me that my story was so relevant, he was going to do a sequel to Wrecking Crew. And then literally days later, he gets on somebody's podcast and he's like, yeah, a lot of the locals have come forward, but their stories aren't really relevant. And I was like, what the fuck? And then he just never would contact me. And I sent him some pretty harsh words, but I think he's a complete sellout.
Well, he said that I couldn't have seen Avery at Patsy's because it's too far away from the wrecking yard, where he supposedly did all this shit. but it's only 15 minutes. I timed it with my truck last 2 times ago when I was there. And you can drive the speed limit from Patsy's to where I saw him to the wrecking yard, Avery's, in about 15 minutes. If you're speeding, you can do it in less. And it's, that's not proof that, that's not nothing that, that debunks me completely. It's like, oh, okay, that's the reason why I didn't see him,
Well, with a lot of people in the alleged truther community, like I heard from one of them after that, they didn't want to talk to me unless I was able to have contact with Zellner or John Farrick. If I could talk to them, then get back to them, and then maybe they'd talk to me.
Well, in a lot of real ways, in order to even talk to Zellner or talk to the media, you have to have a lawyer. That's part of this dirty lawyer club is part of it. And I've talked to lawyers already, and they've kind of told me kind of, and that's, if you go on like that stupid Dr. Phil or something like that, that's all controlled. You don't say anything that they don't know you're going to say. Mm-hmm. And they've got a lawyer saying that, oh, you can only do this, or otherwise, it's good. They'll take all your money away. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So that's how it actually works. That's how the media works. You don't get involved with the media unless you have a lawyer.
Well, and it's all controlled. They don't get to put out what they want. And
a smart lawyer won't touch anything that we're saying.
What's that?
A smart lawyer will not touch anything that we are saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they know. Like, I'm sure that like Brendan's attorneys there, the Department of whatever.
Innocence Project.
Yeah, Innocence Project. I'm sure they know what happened. They just can't say it because they're kind of landlocked in the rules, And that's the same thing with Zellner. She can only do this because she's landlocked with, options,
And I'm all about do whatever you need to do, but I'm not about her putting it on fucking Bobby and all of this just, that's what it looks like is going to happen to me.
Oh, Christ. Even if he did do it, how could they even prove it by now? All the evidence is complete garbage.
I don't.
And it's, it'll just go down as a mystery, If they would let Avery out, I think it would just go unsolved. And I don't think they're going to let him out.
I agree. But I feel like by not coming forward and not speaking up about the things we know, what's the fear right now? You know what I mean? This world is pretty whacked out. A lot of things are being uncovered. And you do need, you need to start in your own communities. So if people would just at least try to open their mind to it, it drives me insane. Like when other groups will act like you're crazy. Or what drives me even crazier is that they're willing to dabble into a little bit of Dave Begotka because he's got all these views, but they don't fucking believe what you're saying. No, and then then there's that little club. Now we're in this club over here that we all think Dave Begotka is a lunatic. And it's really, your part of it is you have a piece of the puzzle that is so gigantic that nobody, or yes, some people, but a lot of people don't want to put into place. And you talking as much as you did today about Bob Ziegelbauer, I do have, I probably, in different areas, I have done also a lot of research on the guy to put him in his, to follow him to see where he was at all these crucial times. And he's been on that fucking board and in office for a very long time. And I just want to say this about the sons of bitch is that in the Penny Bernstein case, in the deposition of, I don't know who it was, but apparently Tom Kusurik took pictures of Penny Bernstein after she had been attacked to the board members, the county board members. And Penny is pretty upset about that. She claims she feels like Tom Kusurik did it to try to, get more funding for the county. I believe, I already know Bob Ziegelbauer was working on the board And I believe it was a message possibly to Tom Bernstein, because maybe he didn't want to join
Yeah, or
protected club.
these clubs fight within each other too. You know what I mean? So it's hard to know what all them fuckers are doing.
Right. But I just don't I think it was a club hit on Penny Bernstein there, I'll say it.
It could be, yeah, it could be.
And I don't really, I mean, like, if I hadn't sat and gone through the depositions, which is a gosh darn treat, if anybody, read them. They're full of really good stuff, but
Her Radio Lab interview that she did, that's on the YouTube, you can listen to it.
Who?
Penny Bernstein did a Radio Lab, interview, about what happened. And what she says in that isn't what I saw. You know what I mean? She said that she was wandering around the dunes and these people found her. Mm-hmm. And what I saw was her coming running over the dunes like she's on fire. I mean, just running as fast as you can run. And she ran almost directly to these two people standing there with a white towel. Ran right past me, within 10 feet of me probably. And she was messed up, you know what I mean? But it's just, that's not what she says, the way she explained it isn't how it happened, and that makes me wonder what the hell is going on,
Well, after reading the depositions and listening to these deputies talk about how Kusurik was the first one at the hospital, that he was by the door, went in for the drawing, he was just constantly there with Penny. I don't know if Gregory Allen did it. I don't know what happened that day, but then Couché in his deposition, he flat out says DNA can be planted, right? And I don't know what the purpose would be in 95 for whoever to call and say you got the wrong guy, but there's been a rift between the Manitowoc police and the Manitowoc sheriff that people have to research too. It was very fucking real, and I'm sure is still there to some degree. So maybe it wasn't Tom. Maybe it was Tom Bergner finally doing the right thing, because he was city, Kusurik was county, and Bergner did. He tried to tell Penny. He literally called Penny on the phone and said, "I believe it might be this other guy, Gregory Allen." Penny had to call Tom Kusurik and tell him. Bergner would not call Tom Kusurik and tell him himself. So I just wonder how much control Kusurik didn't have just standing by that door, because he knew Judy DeMorat was in there. He knew Couché was coming in with the stack of pictures that Kusurik had. Penny apparently couldn't even see anything and shouldn't have even signed anything, yet they are already saying Stephen Avery. So I'm wondering if Kusurik wasn't in control of what happened to Penny and wasn't standing over her, making sure she didn't point at someone else.
Yeah, well, I think Chad Keller did some pretty good research and has a pretty good explanation for what was going on there.
What's that?
He says that the state of Wisconsin wanted to study sex offenders, and they were given money and equipment to departments to study sex offenders because they wanted to study them. So they gave a camera and equipment and stuff, and they were staking out Gregory Allen. I mean, they let the perverts follow the perverts is what happened. They had the sick fuckers watching the sick fuckers, okay?
No way. Throw the club into that, please.
Yeah. And anyways, think about it. And then they were out there, and whoever, it could have been Gregory Allen. I think he was like a hit for him. He was like the hitter. You got to understand these parties and these things that they do are more like a satanic sacrifice seance than anything. You know, they believe that they're conjuring good and evil. You know what I mean? And they probably they could have used Gregory Allen as like an actor. He did all the dirty work, and they all stood there and watched and videotaped it. Probably, I bet there's a videotape of it, because like I said, when I ran up on the sand dunes, there was somebody laying there videotaping her on the beach with a video camera. on. And then people were back there way before they should have been, and I was told to get the hell out of there. And the person I saw could have been Gregory Allen or it could have been Bushman. I didn't know Bushman at the time, but the guy I saw looked a lot like Gregory Allen. He really did. And he had a leather jacket. He was picking stuff up. There was other people walking around back there. There should have never been anybody there. That was like within minutes of her running over the dunes, So they do these things,
It was Manitowoc City that was supposed to be surveillancing him.
I thought it was Manitowoc.
Tom Kusurik, who showed up saying, "Where is everybody?" But I think he knew where everybody was, conveniently.
Yeah, they knew what was going on.
Manitowoc City, it would have made them look like shit for not having an eye on Gregory Allen, but there was some kind of plan in place, obviously, there too.
There was something going on. I know it because I was on the beach jet skiing, and there was, I knew who the cops were, of course, and back then they would even park their undercover vehicles right behind the county shop, the county jail. So everybody knew who the undercover vehicles were. I mean, you knew, and they were driving. There was more cops down at that beach than people that day. There was something going on. And that was all planned. Whether Penny was in on it or not, I don't know, but it's 50-50 in my mind.
Well, it could be that, and how much she's never going to be able to speak the truth. Right. And maybe that's why, Tom Kusurik brought him into Ziegelbauer to show him, fucking A, right? Well, in 1983 is when Tom Bernstein inherited the world famous candy shop there. And I really can't imagine that Ziegelbauer or Kusurik or all the people in this goddamn club are going to let this very prominent candy store not be part of everything else. Because why are they going to let them out of it, but not you, right? Like you're saying. And Tom Bernstein was pretty pissed off at the way the investigation had gone. In the following morning, there's just, and then in 2003, they completely, I think it's 2003. They're done with the candy store.
Yeah, Mr. Bernstein Mr. Bernstein to me seemed legitimately upset. You know what I mean? On the beach, So it was a real thing for him. So
and that's what I was thinking too when I was reading the deposition about Tom Kusurik, because he doesn't come off in any of their depositions as being like visibly upset. So what I've heard out here is that the Kusuriks and the Bernsteins were great friends. Leo Jadelski, I won't say that. Hey, Leo, if you're watching. Anyway, they were great friends, right? So now Penny's been raped on a beach, Tom Kusurik is in the hospital room. The story goes is that Tom Bernstein went home to spend time to be with his children, which I feel like that is very, very odd. And Tom Kusurik now, so Dave, so say you and I, it's your best friend's wife in that room, your best friend's wife laying in that bed who's just been beaten and assaulted. Are you going to stand at the door going, I'm a sheriff and I'm going to do my job? Or are you going to say to someone, I'm the sheriff, I'm going to do my job, but I'm going to be sitting right next to my friend in there, holding her hand and making sure that she's comfortable with everything she's saying. I'm going to console her. But no. He seems a little stuffy every time he goes in and out, and nobody can remember if he was, in there when the drawing was done, and, nobody actually sees Judy Dvorak. Well, it's Judy Dvorak, Sandra Morris, Tom Kusurik that pretty much started out on this attack on Stephen, right, with the Sandra Morris shit of her saying that he was masturbating outside and all that shit. So I don't know if Sandra Morris is in the Maribel Tracks pictures. I believe that she is, but I am pretty positive Bill Morris is in the pictures. So I have Bill Morris, I have Judy Dvorak, and I have Tom Kusurik in these pictures that nobody wants to be identified in. And now Stephen Avery is framed for doing this lewd shit on the road. And when I talked to Leo Jadowski, who did the investigator, who he did the ride along with Sandra Morris that day, he said Stephen was never doing that shit. He said he'd like pretend he was like shaking his tits at her. And he said he wasn't doing that stuff. And that leads me to think that Stephen's doing to them exactly what the Bushman, Sherry Culhane, Deb Kakash are doing in the pictures. So I don't know, but I feel
maybe
like
he was referencing the pictures.
What's that?
Maybe he was referencing the pictures, huh?
That's what I think. And I don't think he would have known how important those pictures were. And maybe they weren't even his. Maybe they were Chuck's. We asked Stephen a while ago, when did the beef start with Kusurik? He said it started between his dad and Kusurik all those years ago. So you don't think, we know Al owned bars. We know that the bars down there, that videotaping was kind of a new deal. You know, Kim remembers being a minor in the bars, and they were the owners and the workers were videotaping the patrons. You know, it was common.
Yeah.
And or if Chuck had a set of the pictures, because he's in the pictures, and these pictures came from a local around here that were sent to Milwaukee. Who knows? Obviously, Kusurik now being the sheriff, it's 1980 in the pictures. He just won the sheriff in 79. I'm pretty sure it would have been his deal to take care of it. I just want to add into that when I talked to Laurencia Benbenek's lawyer, she said when the Avery trial was going on, Ira Robbins, who is Laurencia's private investigator, sent a file on a Jason Zipper, who is right now a liaison officer in Two Rivers, but apparently Ira Robbins suspected Jason Zipper possibly of being involved in Christine's death because the killer had long red hair and a ponytail, and this Jason guy had red hair, which is kind of interesting, isn't it? That they got a hold of Strang and Buting over somebody they thought was suspicious in the Benbenek case. There's a lot that still needs to be put together. Locals coming forward is really the only way. And I've got people to identify Judy Dvorak in the pictures, and we're taking as many steps as we can. But a lot of people, like the two retired sheriff deputies that I showed the pictures to, I mean, Christ, you would have thought I dropped a fucking bag of dicks in their hand. They were like, "Oh no, I don't know anything about those. No." Well, fuck, of course they knew about them. Of course they knew about them. So,
you think those pictures were taken covertly?
Not really, because there's other people in the audience with cameras on, and you can see that Mike Bushman is looking right at the camera. You can see Tom Kusurik looking at the camera. Yep.
They thought they were among friends, huh?
Yep. And there's kids in them. There's dogs in them.
That's weird.
And the one thing is there's an African American kid in them. I'm like, well, there weren't the fucking town was a sundowner community till when, how long ago? So, there's all kinds of answers we're still looking for. My goal is to give locals a little safe spot to do so, and show them that, might feel a little threatened by it, but what the fuck? Why not? What else?
It's the only way that things are ever going to turn around. You know what I mean? Is if all this secret shit gets taken out. You know what I mean? It doesn't get the best people in office. It doesn't get the best person the job. it makes everything worse,
Yeah. And it isn't, it's not like I'm down on every person involved in it. You don't really have a choice. You
Yeah.
don't just get to say what you want. I have a little beef with Deb Cash being in the pictures, and I'd definitely like to ask her about it. I'm pretty positive it's her, but we know that Deb Cash is a compassionate person by her actions and some other things too, but she's still.
She might have got involved not knowing what she was getting involved in.
Oh, do you think, okay, for one, these women are young. Bridget Brennan, who went on to be the DEA agent for Manitowoc City, and then she was the deputy chief of police for many, many years. She's sitting in these pictures. It is so.
Bridget?
What's that?
Bridget? What's her
Bridget
last name?
Brennan. She married Mark Anderson, the DEA guy from the county.
Yeah, I kind of know who she is.
Right. Well, I found her in the pictures, and I'm looking up.
She must be young. She must be pretty young in the pictures.
She is if they're done in 1980, she's just 18.
Yeah, because
she just graduated. Yeah. So
age.
Sherry Culhane is real young. Deb Cash is very young. And a lot of people are like, that's not Deb Cash. Look at her. I'm like, women we all go through a phase of looking pretty nice at it one time, before we turn into, but you know what I mean? She was a 20-something-year-old woman. She did look hot. So you just have to do the research that far back, but I don't know how Deb Cash would receive me asking her if she's in the pictures. I don't know how any of them would. I have to get them to even talk to me. And I guarantee you it isn't going to be any better to come out with it now because it's been a secret so long. But I'll tell you, it sure would be a big enough secret for them to all frame the same man again, Sherry Culhane again, right?
Yeah. Doesn't even seem right, It seems like a nightmare.
It is. It's disgusting, dirty, whatever is going on, and
all the stuff that happens should not be allowed to happen. All the same people, same, and just like Manitowoc County finding the evidence, all that evidence should be thrown out. You know what I mean? Just
because we as a research community, we feel like, by now there's got to be 100 million people that have seen Making a Murderer, right?
Oh, yeah.
It was 40 million in 2015. So, and they're out there. And then if they feel like, looking into it, there's all of us out here that look into it constantly. But the people in Manitowoc aren't sitting there working on the Avery case. You know what I mean? They don't know that there's more, that we're out here doing more. They think, the case, it's done. Oh, Stephen's never going to get out. They don't look into the depth of it. They don't know that the bones were never proven to be Teresa's. They don't know that there's been no release of this RAV, or that there's even any controversy over the color of the RAV, or that the only thing that they ever found was a fucking tooth. So, they're not going to go back and dig into this. I would just like them to know, because every freaking one of them have a story, but of course they're afraid to speak up because they don't want to lose their business. They don't want to be targeted. They don't want to be killed. And that's what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, another thing they do is they go after your kids, because they have teachers that are in this club. So, I mean, they do all sorts of nasty, you can fuck up kids pretty easy, know? So people worry about their kids. I had some guy contact me from the area, and he was going to get on board and all this stuff, and he doesn't have anything left to live for and all this. I said, well, do you have kids? He's like, well, yeah. I said, they'll probably mess with your kids. Never heard from the guy again.
Right. And we know that. And of course, my God, that is the main, even saying it out loud makes me sick, because of course that's the biggest fear of the people that are coming forward. And they're still coming forward. So, maybe we can just, I feel like with everybody in the community, all the research that's been done, there is so much of the locals' voice that isn't being heard. And so by talking with you and everything that you've done to fucking pave the way for me to even be here, and for people to be looking into this, it's absolutely what you've been saying. So thank you as always for saying it. And I do think that you've made a big impact,
Thanks.
and
Yeah.
the stories of the locals coming back to me that can't come forward are exactly what you're saying and exactly why they won't come forward. And that's pretty much the truth.
Yeah.
So I'm still gonna meet with these people. I had a couple people actually come forward the last couple weeks, and I will meet with them in private. I will keep everything they say confidential, and it might come out to others that want proof and records and all that shit as hearsay, but I'm not gonna shut up because I do think we're gonna get this going,
Yeah, I've been putting off making my next video. It just talking about the stuff isn't the funnest thing in the whole world for me. I'd much rather be doing other things. But
I know.
I've had a lot of people contact me from all over the United States with knowledge of things that went on with this and that go on. And I've got a pretty good theory of how this all could have went down. You know what I mean? And it's a long video. It's gonna.
Oh, okay.
I don't. You see, the satanic shit is really big. It's more than you think. It's these parties are basically ceremonies. A lot of them, And there's these jesters. They're the sons of Satan, man. They're the ones that that are the assholes of the. They take care of the dirty, And the more people they can manipulate and lie to, the better. And they brag to each other. There's multiple levels of these diversions. And Leo, did you ever talk to that Leo guy from Cuss Road?
Mm-mm.
There's some guy named Leo on Cuss Road who did some talking, and he said I think that guy from Australia who put up the money for the reward. I don't remember his name, but anyways, he went there when he was in town, and that Leo guy told him that the building that they killed her in, as in maybe Teresa Halbach, isn't even there anymore, but it was right over there, like in the gravel pit. Okay. So putting that together with everything else that people have told me, including some guy who met a kid out in Portland who claimed that he was at that party and he had blood on his hands. Okay. That's something that they say is blood on their hands. That's part of, how they talk about things. And he said that he was covered in blood and, all sorts of stuff. And they probably had a party out there that night, the 31st, and there'll be people there that are masked, people that have masks on, so you can't tell who they are. And then there'll be people who don't have masks on, and they have sacrifices, and they don't just sacrifice people, they sacrifice animals too. That could be, remember all the bones they found everywhere? They couldn't, some of those bones could be from these parties and these sacrifices. And the way it sounds, somebody drugged Carmen Bootwell in Manitowoc, and they picked her up and took her there and put her in the people that weren't completely in on the new at this party, put her in Teresa's place as the sacrificial person that they were going to kill at this party, one of them. And they look alike. And if you weren't paying attention, you didn't know what was going on beforehand, you would just take their word for it. The next day you found out somebody was missing and dead. And they sacrificed Carmen, maybe. I hate saying this shit, you know what I mean? Because
all right, it's scary, man. And I'm listening intently.
And the people that were in the first level of on the know in this party would have thought that it was Teresa Halbach and they killed her at this party, and they'll be all scared shitless because, oh my God, they know how powerful these people are in this satanic cult, And the people in the masks that were possibly there could have been like maybe members of the Hallbach family if they're in this club. I'm not saying they are, but they'd have been there knowing that it wasn't their sister being sacrificed, and they probably put her into the witness protection program because she was dirty with all sorts of stuff. And that's kind of how they got the double flim flam on everybody at this party. Everybody who was at the party thought that they just witnessed Teresa Hallbach get sacrificed at the satanic party in this building that's not there anymore. And that was, they actually did Carmen, and then they brought her, nobody saw her again. She was gone. Next thing you know, she's incinerated. And then after that, what's it take to get rid of all the evidence? How them gravel places are, they take it down in layers. And the way it sounds, this building was on a higher layer. So after the party, which could have lasted for days because nobody was looking for anybody in the first couple of days, whoever was pushing that car up the driveway that somebody saw, the Avery, they could have been on the second day Jag party. They got all the best drugs. They got all the best everything at these parties, But after the party, they could have taken that building down and removed the earth 4 feet down underneath it. You know what I mean? And put it all through the gravel pit. And there's, no evidence of anything. And they got their successful satanic party. They scared the shit out of a bunch of people, and they got control of the situation.
Right.
By initiating maybe Scott or whoever else might have been involved.
Well, in part, the way that you keep people silent is you include them in on the secret. And if you make this so fucking heinous that you're like, fuck, if I'll ever talk, because that'll happen to me, that's why they do it right there.
And remember, there's been other girls found dead in gravel pits in that area. This is something that they do. You know what I mean? And that's part of the dirtiest secret of all. Is they're out there having these crazy parties where they kill people, and do all sorts of crazy sex shit to control people.
Right.
And that's why the people I know that talk to me were scared shitless. I mean, they're really in fear for their life, the people that know. Imagine going to a party and them taking a little kid and cutting its throat right in front of you. And imagine what that does to you. I'm not saying that happened in Manitowoc County, but I know what happens at these parties. Well, and that's how evil these people are. And that's the people that are in the lower levels of the club. That's what you're supporting with your idiocracy of thinking that you're doing something good. You're supporting these gesture assholes and all these other people that do all this satanic shit.
Yeah. And the Maribel Caves are notorious for having those kinds of parties. And they claim that they, made it so you can't really get into many of the caves. But in my research, I found that there's one part of the cave called the Cathedral. And it's like, totally like a cathedral inside. Yeah. So just miraculously, they thought, we'll shut this one up. You don't think they're using that? Like, come on.
Yeah, well, it's a perfect place. They control it completely,
And Dave, it's hard to throw in the satanic ritual type stuff, but I'm pretty educated on that too. And I actually believe when my 2.5-year-old brother was raped to death, it was through a ritual. And
probably,
I think it was through child protection. I know that Mark Ott's dad was working that day. So it's the police chief, it's the medical examiner. I got it all tied together. And I'm not even sure. I think they may have taken his heart. So
it's proven that you can drink kids' blood and eat their heart and stuff and get medical benefits from it. These cells, the stem cells everybody's looking for, that's all in there. You know what I mean? And it's regenerative. So,
and how convenient is it too that, just for instance, my nephew passed away in the 90s and my sister's husband's father passed away, and the coroner for both of those instances was Mark Wiegert. Because she must have been in Calumet County. Half of my town is Calumet. So when you have a dirty, satanic bastard showing up to be the coroner that's also involved in it, just like Mike Klaser. Mike Klaser's the Calumet County medical examiner, but he's also an anesthesiologist.
It's scary.
That's convenient, huh?
Yeah, just think having him on against you, huh? He knows how to knock you out and bring you back and torture you. Oh,
Or
God.
going under his knife, going, shit,
Yeah.
little ass boy. We have, we've been going an hour and 50 minutes. Let's cut her down. Let's shut it down.
All right.
What a great interview. Of course, you rocked it. I'm pretty nervous and stuff, but I'm learning. I hope you do your next video. And
Yeah, I've been wanting. Like I said, I hate talking about this shit. It's just.
I know you do, but here's my goal. If we could just do what we're doing with about 5 other people that actually know what the fuck is going on, even if we don't like each other, right? That's my goal, Dave. I don't want this to be my life. I was hoping to get this shit out and move on. And every time I find something new, I don't even want to dwell on it. I want to just get going. I want it to stop. I want them free so I can stop with this. It's ridiculous. So I hear you. And I appreciate you.
Thanks.
And I also appreciate if I ever have some blazing question or whatever, I can just send you a message and you answer me. So you're always there. And we do appreciate you a lot, Dave. You have a lot of courage. And we're looking for more people with good discernment and bravery to come on forward.
All right. Well, thanks for all you do too. I get a lot of good feedback from you also. We're
getting there. Yeah, let's talk again soon, Dave. Thank you so much.
All right.
And say hi to Sandra.
All right. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.